And so we roll into 2024. It's been a crazy year. And I want to ask you a question. For the last 5 years, what has your years looked like? What's your income looked like? Your workload, your stress levels? What does your lifestyle look like over the last 5 years? See, the reality is that 64% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, which is a pretty alarming number considering that that's more than half of the population who are struggling to get by financially. And it doesn't matter if you're an online business owner, a digital nomad, or a 9 to 5 office worker, you're still in the same boat where you're working more and living less. And maybe your income and expenses look something like this, where you're making $4,000 or $10,000 a month and just covering your expenses, having little wiggle room to get ahead financially. And this is what it looks like plotted on a graph. You have a lot of time spent earning money, and it's barely covering your expenses, leaving you no gap to get ahead. And maybe for some of you, you even have more expenses than what you're making, which results in you having to take out debt, having to get credit cards, having to take out loans just to pay your bills and get by. And maybe on top of that, you also have a mortgage and tax debt that might be holding you down as well. And this is a slow, painful way to dig yourself a financial hole. I'm sure you want to get ahead financially, make a ton of money, and really just crush it in 2024, right? And so what that looks like is increasing your income so that you can create this gap where you have money to invest. And this is where you're going to be able to create real wealth. Because when you have that spare cash to invest, you can then make your money work for you and build true wealth. What that looks like when you have true wealth is you're able to remove your debt faster, you can save easier, you can invest more, and you also have a better lifestyle. And that all comes from increasing your income. So how do we increase our income? Well, really it comes down to earning more for your input. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of you are currently stuck in this cycle of trading time for money. And this is a capped equation because we only have 24 hours in a day. And even if you were to work 16 hours of the day, that's still a limited input, right? Because who wants to work more? The whole goal is to work less so that we can live more of our life. And so working 16-hour days to make more money doesn't make sense, right? Even if you're working a standard 8-hour day, that's still a lot of hours that you're working, and it's a limited input. Maybe you're working for $30 an hour, $50 an hour. It's still a limited input, right? You can only make so much money when you're working that many hours. And maybe even for the business owners out there who are running online businesses, you might even be trading more time and getting less for the input that you're putting in. And if you actually were to go and break down how many hours you're putting into the business and how much you're taking in personal income from it, it might look something like this, where you're working 14 hours for $15 an hour, which is again, limited input, limited output. And so this equation of trading time for money leads you to a place where you're in debt, you're stressed about finances, you're barely covering your bills, and you can't work out how to get ahead financially. You're also stressed, you're overworked, you're underpaid, all of these things. And so I think this equation of trading time for money is really a broken one. And we need to move away from trading our time for money to instead using leverage to generate money. Leverage is the key to getting ahead financially without having to trade your time, but instead building systems and processes and people that can generate money for you. And so let's talk through some models or some ways that you can do this. There's online business, right? Which is a great way to create a scalable income. It's a long-term asset, and ultimately there are tons of business opportunities out there. The tricky part with this though is there's lots to learn. You have to learn marketing, sales, all these different skills that is going to take you a ton of time to learn and might even cost you money to learn. Plus, this is very hard to get a business off the ground, right? To have a great idea that has a good product market fit, that's going to sell like hotcakes, it takes time to craft that. And so this usually takes years until you are quite successful. A lot of these stories of like people saying, oh, I've made XYZ amount of money in 60 days. It's because they spent 5 years before those 60 days building the skills that they needed to have that explosion of cash. And so I think it's really important to note that online business is a great scalable income, but it takes a lot of time. There's uncertainty, there's inconsistent income, and there's lots to learn as well. What about side hustles? I know a lot of you are starting all these weird, inconsistent side hustles. There's a variety of hustles out there that can generate you a great side income. But again, they're inconsistent, they're hard to start, and it's not very scalable, right? A lot of these things kind of die out after a few months or a few years, and it doesn't really help you with a long-term strategy for creating wealth. Then we've also got investing, which is trading in crypto or Forex or different markets like this. Learning to invest is a great thing if you have a lot of capital, but for a lot of you who don't have spare cash to invest, this is just going to take a lot of work to learn not only this strategy, but you're also risking your money that you really don't have to risk. And so I think it's really important to note that this is a great way to make massive profits and put your money to work for you, but there is the potential for massive losses and also a lot of learning and very, very risky as well. So I'm sure you're wondering, well, Tom, those are all the things that I've heard. What's actually the best method to make money and get ahead financially in 2024? Well, I want to share with you something that's not a business model. It doesn't require any investment at all whatsoever. Your guaranteed results, you can work less than 4 hours per day, earn $200,000 per year, and it can be set up in less than 3 months. You're probably wondering, what the heck is it? It's called overemployment or becoming overemployed. And essentially what that is taking on multiple remote jobs at the same time. And this is a growing trend that is rising within the industry of people taking on multiple remote jobs at the same time and working them simultaneously to generate multiple income streams, multiple paychecks. And so you're probably wondering, multiple jobs? That sounds hella stressful. I don't want to work one job, let alone 4 jobs. That sounds super stressful. And that's where I came up with what I call the LVRGD Method. It's a 2-step process of first finding remote opportunities, and then secondly, simplifying, automating, and delegating your workload so that you can remove yourself from the process and create a leveraged way to generate income. So what this might look like is you might have 4 jobs as an example here. You'll have virtual assistants, automations, and work simplification happening in each of these jobs so that you can work less in each job and generate these multiple streams of income. And thus, this puts you in a place where you're using leverage to generate income, and so you can spend more time living your life, less time working, but generate more income. Because that's the place that we all want to get to, where we can work less, earn more, and live a life of freedom. A life where we have the finances free, the time free, and we can be anywhere in the world to truly have freedom. And let's go through a few stories of other people who have done this in the overemployed space. You can see this person at the bottom here. They just took on their 3rd job and they've been doing this for 3 months now, and they're currently making $200,000 per year across their 3 jobs. This is a great way to go because by making multiple incomes, you can essentially have the power to get ahead financially and also split this up into living and investment, right? So you could live on 2 full-time wages and invest the other 2, and now all of a sudden you're getting ahead financially. You also have a better quality of lifestyle because you're living on more money, and also you just don't have to stress about jobs because now you have 4 different jobs. If you get fired from one, you still have 3 other streams of income coming in. And you can even do this just with 2 jobs, right? Even if you just had 2 jobs, you live on one, you invest the other one, now you have the opportunity to get ahead financially. And this is something that we haven't had the opportunity to do with any other model, any other business model. It won't get you to the result as quickly as this does. And it's so much more powerful because it's something that everyone can do. Everyone has had a job in their life. Everyone has the potential to get remote work. And here's another story of someone who's been doing this for 1 year, working 2 jobs, and they're just about to secure their first investment property because they have that extra cash flow to now invest into different things like property, invest into things like Forex and trading, and all of these models that can make your money work for you. And this is how you can get ahead financially without having to go and start a business or start any of these inconsistent side hustles. I've been doing this in the whole of 2023, earning $220,000 per year, working less than 2 hours per day, and traveling Asia full time. Been to Bali, been to Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, all these different beautiful countries, exploring the world, living my life, working less than I ever have before, and making more money than I ever have before as well. And so that's the power of this model. And so I want to show you what this looks like in theory, because you might be having a lot of questions around how is this actually possible to work multiple remote jobs. So it really comes down to simplifying the input to get the output, right? And so most people at the moment are trading 8 hours per day of their time to generate only $60,000 roughly. That's like the average wage that most people are making. Maybe you're making a bit more, maybe you're making a bit less. That's the average wage that people are trading 8 hours per day of their time to generate. Me, I can trade 4 hours per day of my time and generate $220,000 per year by simplifying my workload and leveraging my time. And so let's break down what leverage actually looks like. So again, in this same example, someone is trading 8 hours, they're getting $60,000 in return. I'm trading 4 hours per day and getting $200,000 in return. I'm making 3.7 times more money, but working half of the hours. That is leverage. And so what that looks like over a longer time horizon, if you were to do this for 5 years, you can see you would only generate $300,000 and you'd be working 10,000 hours to generate that. But in my case, you would be generating $1.1 million working only 5,000 hours. That's the beauty of this model of overemployment and also leveraging your time, is you're able to achieve these massive financial results that looks crazy to some people. And it's all from being able to take on multiple paychecks, right? So here's some more stories you can look into as well from other people who are overemployed. The first person here, it's a great feeling to be bringing in $25,000 net in my first full month of OE. So they made $25,000 in their first month of working multiple jobs. Imagine what this looks like over years, right? You start to get really ridiculous numbers happening. And again, more stories here. You can see the person at the bottom just took on their second job and then now making $800 per day in their first job and $700 per day in their second job. They almost doubled their income just by getting that second job. And so they're doubled their income, but they're working less. And that's the key part of this, is working less. So let's talk about how you actually find these remote work opportunities and what does it look like to actually take the skills that you have to find these opportunities. So it really comes down to unpacking what you already have, the knowledge, the skill sets, the expertise that you already have, taking that and finding roles that match that, right? And by using the skills that you already have, maybe you pick up a couple of extra skills along the way, like these little puzzle pieces of skill sets, right? That's what I like to call them. It's like fitting together this big puzzle of skills to find these job opportunities that match that. So I think it's really about studying and taking what you already know into the online space, but also adding on a couple extra skills, learning to upskill a little bit as well. And that's going to give you the opportunity to find these remote opportunities. Now, you want to pick one industry and one job title to get really good at, because I find a lot of people try and climb so many different ladders at the same time, right? You're sending out a resume hoping to get opportunities in data entry, in graphic design, in social media, marketing, admin, e-commerce, all these different roles. And so what ends up happening is you'll start climbing one of these roles, get a role maybe for 3 months, and then you jump over to the next thing, social media, and then you climb that a little bit, and just you never kind of get anywhere if you constantly jumping between all these different jobs, all these different job titles. It never really works out. And it ends up making you average at everything. And if you're average at everything, it's really hard to get ahead in the remote space. And so what I recommend for people is to climb one ladder and become an expert at that one thing. Because by doing this, you become in demand and you start to have job opportunities fall in your lap. Because if you are an expert at something, you are more sought after than the average person. And so one important thing here to note is that when you're sending your applications, it always looks better to have relevant experience. I find a lot of people, when they send their resumes, they want to have a list of everything that they've done in their life, all the colleges they studied at, all the jobs they've had, but this isn't actually valuable to the recruiter. The recruiter is looking for relevant experience that matches the skills required to complete the role that they're hiring out. And so it's really important to have specific resumes, going about having video resumes even, and then also updating your LinkedIn profile, updating other profiles online to really stand out. And this comes down to having a good application strategy. By having an application strategy, you're going to be able to stand out from the crowd and not just have a broad, generic resume that no one's ever really going to take the time to look through. And then from there, you should be able to get some job offers, and it really comes down to negotiating on these job offers. There's a few key things you want to look for in these job offers to make sure that you can become overemployed with these specific roles. And so it's really important to study these job offers that you do get after taking interviews and make sure that they match the kind of criteria that we're looking for to become overemployed with multiple jobs. Then we move on to the second step of the leveraged method, which is to simplify, automate, and delegate your workload. And this really comes down to knowing your workload. So really breaking it down into important work, standard work, random work, and unnecessary work. I find by breaking down your workload into these categories, it makes it really, really easy to understand how to simplify things. So the first thing is obviously getting rid of unnecessary work. These are tasks that don't contribute to the overall outcome or output of your role. And so these can be just removed. A lot of you are probably doing a lot of work throughout your day at the moment that doesn't need to be done, that doesn't contribute to the role that you're doing. The next thing is what I call the work simplification matrix. And this is a 3-step matrix to basically simplify your workload. So we're decreasing the volume of tasks that we're doing, we're decreasing the complexity of the tasks that we're doing, and we're increasing how fast each task gets done. And by doing this, we can essentially speed up and simplify our workload to remove a lot of heavy lifting. Then we're going to move into automations, which is finding tools and softwares that can automate parts of our work for us. And so there's ChatGPT, high-level Zapier, a ton of other great AI tools that are out there at the moment that can help you to set up automations to automate parts of your work. Then the next step is to delegate, which is finding virtual assistants we can pay as little as $4 an hour from the Philippines or other countries to basically complete the rest of our work for us. Now, you will probably still have a few extra tasks that you need to do depending on the work, on the job that you're in. And that will leave you with something that looks like this, where you'll have about 2 to 3 hours per day of work to do in this job. And the rest is leveraged work that you've either given to a virtual assistant, you've automated, or you've simplified. And by doing that process, we can essentially take on multiple remote jobs at the same time without any hassle and easily being able to juggle the workload. This allows you to earn more while working less and be anywhere in the world while you do it. And it also is going to provide you with the ultimate job security, because if you have multiple jobs, if you lose one or you get laid off, you don't have to stress about your income. You're not surviving or relying on just one stream of income. You have multiple, so all your eggs aren't in one basket, which makes it very, very safe in terms of your job security. You also accelerate your career advancement, because by working multiple jobs, you have more opportunities for learning and growth within your career, as well as having the choice to list what experience you want to put on your resume. If you have 3 jobs to pick from, that gives you more options to put on your resume when you're applying to more jobs. It also gives you a lot of consistency in income, consistency in work. You know exactly what workload needs to be done week in, week out, day in, day out. You know exactly how much you're getting paid, how many paychecks are coming in, which makes it really easy to save, invest, put your money aside for things. It makes it really easy to organize your finances when things are consistent. You know exactly how much is coming in, how much is going to come out for your bills and expenses, and how much you have spare left over to invest. And so that makes it really, really easy to live a great lifestyle. There's also minimum risk involved with this. You don't have to go and quit your 9-to-5 job or shut down your business to go and do this. In fact, you can do this alongside your business, right? Get a couple jobs on the side to fund the growth of your business. Or if you're working an office job, get a couple remote jobs on the side and then slowly make the transition out of your office job into the remote jobs. There's no risk involved in making this transition into going overemployed, right? There's also no investment. You don't have to spend any money. Anyone can send applications online, anyone can take interviews and get job offers, and anyone can hire virtual assistants once they're getting a paycheck. There's no upfront investment involved in this opportunity and getting ahead. And there's also only 2 skills needed. The 2 skills that I talked about with the leveraged method, which is first, finding remote work and opportunities, and second is leveraging that work once you have the job. Those are the only 2 skills that you need to learn, and once you have those 2 skills, you can easily implement this in your life. And you can set all of this up in less than 3 months. And it's also a great stepping stone to your business as well. If you take on multiple jobs, you can eventually make the transition to starting a business very, very easy, because you have the capital behind you, you have the experience in working in other people's businesses, and you also have great opportunities and networks and connections that you can utilize to start a business if you wanted to. So now you have the choice. Are you going to repeat the same year that you've repeated for the last 3, 4, 5 years? Or are you going to make 2024 the year that you finally break free